What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you, Ryan Moody, Jimmy Smith, our MMA show. We usually cover boxing. And obviously, if you're going to cover boxing, you got to cover Fury Wilder, too. I mean, Jimmy, how many times do you really feel like we're going to get a better fight the second time? Because we know what we're getting into now, right? Like, this really is one of the biggest fights I can remember in the past 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. And it's in the heavyweight division. And it's two heavy hitters. Of course, Deontay Wilder knocks out just about everybody he touches other than Tyson Fury. Great fight the first time around. I thought Tyson Fury won it, but incredibly entertaining, especially in that last round. So it has so many things that remind guys like us who remember a better era of heavyweight boxing of those eras, of those great knockout fighters, of those great matchups that you really, you circled it on your calendar and it was a big deal. It's been a long time since we've had a heavyweight fight like that. I would say maybe the first one of these, the first one between these two guys. That's the issue, is the heavyweight boxing championship fight used to be a big deal. And once again, it's a big deal and it feels big and it's great. I think we're going to get a great fight out of it, but it's kind of a throwback to guys like you and me.
I'm so glad that less than 90 seconds in, you talked about Tyson's power, because it gets down talked a lot. People act like this man has pillows in his hands, and it's funny to me. It really is funny to me. But let's actually get into the dynamics of this fight, because you have guys that just came out of what do you call them? You want to call them warm-up fights? Tyson beat Otto despite a bad cut, so we learned a little bit in that fight. Obviously had another warm-up fight versus Walsh. He's a challenging fighter, okay? You don't know what his stance is going to be, number one. He does create a lot of issues going southpaw. We saw that the last fight, especially when Wilder, to be honest with you, didn't have a lot of answers for the jab. We'll talk about that probably later on. But, when you look at what Tyson does, great job with double jabs, uppercuts. Obviously, probably known for the most striking aspect of his game, which is the movement and the size. It's just, he's a rare fighter. And a lot of people, like we mentioned, they kind of talk down about his power because everything else is a level above. But, this is a guy that can still knock people out. Make no mistake about it.
And I also think it's because of his size, maybe. He's so big that you assume a guy like that can knock out everybody. Well, it's power's not like that. Mike Tyson was a much shorter, smaller fighter. He knocked out just about everybody. So people look at his frame and go, man, he should knock out everybody. Yeah, he's a big dude. It's true. But 29 wins, 20 knockouts, that ain't bad. And also, when you move up quickly, which he did by comparison, just because he had a pedigree as an amateur, you're fighting tough guys pretty early. Yeah, he beat Klitschko. It wasn't going to knock him out. All right. So it's one of those things where, what level were you thrust into comparatively early? Tyson, as an example, fought a lot of bums early in his career because he didn't have that Olympic gold to lean on. So, yeah, he has power that's more than people give him credit for. But the thing they do give him credit for, that he deserves credit for, is his movement is really unorthodox. Great movement, very hard to time, very tricky. It's just hard to get a read on this guy. And by the time you do, he's on you and he's throwing a volume of punches. And yeah, you talked about winning despite being cut. We've seen his toughness. We've seen him pushed. We've seen him get off the canvas. First time against Deontay Wilder. I mean, you saw all those memes of him, next to the Undertaker, because that's what it looked like. It looked like he was waking up from the dead. So it's just everything about the guy is kind of entertaining. And I think that's a big part of the excitement here.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that. There was a clip where Deontay Wilder was talking about that moment, and he mentioned that. He said, there's a lot of showmanship here, but he fully expected that fight to be over, and then he turns around, and, Fury's sitting up, and he's like, what do you have to do to get this guy out of there? But when you talk about Deontay Wilder, he is a guy that can do that. Now, he had tune-up fights of his own, okay? And we saw that. We saw a guy that can stop somebody with one shot. We saw it against Brazil. We saw it against Ortiz. But most importantly, when I watched the fight again with Ortiz, okay, he has issues going backwards. There's no two ways around it. Now, granted, he can still stop somebody with one shot. We saw it, like I said. But you know what really bothers me about what I'm seeing in his game is as he's gotten older, two things. Number one, he started to telegraph his right hooks just a little bit with his footwork. If you watch his left foot, he steps outside just a little bit and he'll try to pull somebody inside. Now, he does it with the straight, but not as often. And it's just gotten to the point where I wonder if he doesn't have this methodical thought process of, I've got to just land the power punch. If I can just line up the kill shot, that's all I need. He doesn't throw as much volume as he used to, because it's almost like he's just waiting for that one power shot. And listen, he's got the power to play that game, right? That's the thing. He is the one that can do it. Just can it be successful in this fight?
That's the question. It really is. I just don't think he outboxed Fury the first time. I thought Fury won that fight. But can he outbox anyone? In terms of the Ortiz fight, his last fight, okay, against Victor Ortiz, the rematch. I'm sorry, not Victor Ortiz, Luis Ortiz, of course, different boxer. He's if you can't put away rounds, you're saying I have to win by knockout. Now, his line after Luis Ortiz knockout was, I was setting him up the whole time for this. Any plan that involves you losing the first 6 rounds is a bad plan. You're putting yourself in a hole that only a knockout can dig you out of. That is not good. And I wish in the Ortiz fight, in the Brazil fight, we would have seen, in the Brazil fight, of course, really short, a little bit more footwork, a little bit more volume, a little bit more staying behind the jab, better fundamentals. Remember, this is a guy who didn't walk into a boxing gym at all. He didn't start till he was 20. So a lot of those fundamentals you build up in the amateurs, you build up as a young man, coming through. He doesn't have them. When you talk about, man, he really didn't deal with the jab of Fury very well. Man, he doesn't fight that well moving backward. Telegraphs his power shots. Those are all things that you eliminate from years and years and years at the gym. He didn't have that. He did have the amateur pedigree and then, obviously medaled the Olympics, but had like 18, 20 amateur fights. He didn't get the learning curve everyone else got. So he's had to rely on his power. And I think in this fight, it catches up with him because Fury took the shot last time and got up. He doesn't want to eat another one if he can avoid it. But this is a guy who's slick, tricky, hard to land on. Very hard to land on. And if I had seen more in the Ortiz fight, more improvements, looking a little bit more ready for Tyson Fury, I'd feel better about his prospects. But I don't, because I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the Ortiz fight in a really respectful manner, because to be fair, what you had here was a champion, okay, but an older champion, and somebody that I thought was going to wilt to the power a lot faster than he ultimately did. And when I go back and look at how Ortiz fought, he went southpaw, he went volume, he went head and body, he went constant pressure. I can't look at Wilder taking all those rounds of damage, finally landing that one knockout hook and saying, yeah, that's it. That's what I was waiting for. That's what I wanted. That's what I'm going to do. Because when I look at Tyson Fury, I know what he's going to do. He's going to bring pressure. He's going to put him backwards. He's going to hold up to the power shot. And is that going to frustrate Deontay Wilder? Is he going to point out the first couple rounds, and then now we see that drama that we kind of saw before, where that one calibrated punch has to come in, that home run shot, and we're seeing kind of that awe-inspiring Tyson movement versus those wild bombs of Wilder just trying to connect to one?
Yeah, that's the difference here. That really is to me, does Deontay Wilder have the tools to win rounds, to win a fight? Now, he's gotten by, and I don't want to say gotten by, he's been very, very successful in knocking guys out. But against Tyson Fury, I think he has to win rounds. Even if to get a knockout late, I think he has to frustrate him at some point. I think he has to put something in the bank. He has to make Fury concerned about, hey, maybe I got to turn it up to win a decision. Then you can catch a guy coming in with some power. But I think if he lets Tyson Fury win 9 of the first 10 rounds, like he was on his way to doing against Ortiz, that will give Fury the idea of, look, I can shut down late, not take many risks, and win this. Now, I think you got screwed the first time, so you might not trust the judges. But you got to win some rounds to make your opponent take some risks. And the psychological edge of winning some rounds and getting some stuff done, that's the issue to me. He's fighting a smarter fighter who's younger and knows, I think, that he won the first fight, first time around. You're going to have to take some confidence away from this guy by winning rounds. And does he have the technique and skill set to do that? That's a huge question to me.
To me, the question is a lot more simple. You're essentially betting, can Tyson Fury put together a full, perfect 36-minute fight? Or can Wilder find the one or two openings he needs to drop him once or twice and end the fight? Both of them are possible. That's why we're going to watch. That's why we're going to buy. Both of them can happen. What is more realistic? To me, it's more realistic that Fury can put together a perfect fight for a longer amount of time. And that's why, honestly, when I look at this, I think when we first covered this fight, we talked about how the draw was damaging to boxing. It was everything we didn't want boxing to be. It was the anticlimactic sigh. But, that is such a distant memory now. And it's really not been used as a catalyst to build this fight up. But it is intriguing that you mention it there. In his mind, he knows, hey, do I have to do more than I thought? Because it's pretty clear. You watch the end of the last fight, while they both are jubilant, I really get the impression Tyson Fury jumps up on the ropes, raises his hands. He thinks he's won. Does he feel like he has to overextend, and make it a much more compelling win than to some it was the first time?
That is big. That is big. Because do you believe you're putting rounds away when you're not? Do you trust again in the system that burned you? Because I think it's highly unlikely that Tyson Fury knocks out Deontay Wilder. It's possible. It's possible. But if he thinks he has to knock out Deontay Wilder, totally different kind of fight. I think he outboxes him. He outmoves him. Counter punches him. He's slick. He puts away rounds. But if he goes in there going, I got to finish this guy to get a win, that is the ice skating uphill. It's the hardest way you could go. I just don't know if I'm his coaches, I keep him away from that mentality. I go, hey, look, it didn't work out the first time, but you can beat this guy by putting away rounds, being the smart boxer, sticking to the game plan, not getting in a firefight, not being emotional, and you can beat him. And I would do my damnedest to stick my guy with that mentality of you don't need the big punch and put this guy away and all that stuff. Outbox him, stay smart, you can win.
The only way that I could see Tyson knocking him out, and I really mean the only way, would be through volume. Would be backing him up to the ropes or to the corner and just smothering him to the point where he wilted. It's probably, of all the outcomes, honestly, that I could go through, it's probably the least likely scenario, I think, to play out.
Yes. Yes, it is. And so you don't want that, all or nothing mentality to dog you if you're Tyson Fury. You're the boxer, right? You're the guy who can outpoint him and frustrate him and all these things and show him all of the deficiencies he has in terms of his pure boxing. You can do that. You can expose that. Don't make this about power, because that's what Deontay Wilder has in spades, is crazy power. Don't fall into that game. No matter what happened the first time around, throw that away. New fight.
Let me finish with this. So we obviously know the first one is a draw. We don't know what's going to happen on the second one. Could be anything that we've just talked about. Knowing what you know now going into this second fight, and really absent of any outcome that we would know, would you be willing to see a third fight just based on the fact that really no matter what happens, we're always going to be able to go back to that draw and not say for certain that there was a better fighter each time? Even if someone does definitively win this fight, I would hope to God it's not another draw.
Yes. If it's a competitive fight, I would love to see a new one. I really would love to see a third one if it's a competitive fight, which I think it should be. But if it's competitive, man, I'll check it out again. I want to see who really comes out on top with the third one. That'd be fun.
Well, if nothing else, these two have almost single-handedly put boxing back into the best place it's been in a long time. I'm appreciative of that. I know you are, but we're also very appreciative of you guys. If you don't know, we normally do MMA podcast. If you want to go, if you're on YouTube, look at the arsenal of links that will follow this video where you can go and get our thoughts and opinions on variety of fights, both pre and post fight. And then obviously on the podcast, there's a ton of information there. For those of you that don't know, we actually port the podcast over to YouTube. For those that complain there's no video, that's why. And believe it or not, there's actually some podcasts that aren't even available on YouTube. So go check it out over on any really carrier but Spotify. With that said, we appreciate you guys checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more content.